Okay, if you would that not work? We're live now, by the way.
Oh, hi.
You totally can't do it with the.
No, you can't do it with me muted. All right, so we got to do it this way. Clap incoming. All right, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I can do better than that.
Nobody's listening. We're kind of rusty, okay?
Yeah, we sucked at that. Okay, so for anyone that's wondering, as we're doing that, that is so we can actually I can align the audio later, because I'm not a good enough professional to not do that.
You know what's really funny though? I've actually listened to more than a few podcasts where they actually have the clap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, podcast. At the beginning of people they take for granted.
Yeah.
Scene 14, take 3, clack. That's what the clack is. You know that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's an audio mark. Clack. So yeah, I mean, it's a.
I will do better next time. I apologize.
I will endeavor, but next time is only going to be 2 weeks away because we're going to suck less, right?
I'm so excited.
I know, me too.
You have no idea how incredibly excited I am to try to get us on a schedule. Seriously.
And by get us on the schedule, you mean get me on the schedule?
Well, no.
I completely understand. I understand how excited you are to get me.
I can't reiterate this enough that this project was supposed to be a project of love, not work, okay? And I purposely had told Seven when we had this idea that IRL should always be first, and if it gets in the way, it gets in the way. And there's, until we make our millions, man,
Yeah, let's work on that.
Making millions? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we get to millions. My schedule opens up pretty quickly at that point.
Fair.
It's a lot easier for me to make time in the millions realm, for sure. So how are you, Hapa?
I'm fantastic, man. How are you? How are things?
You look good, man. Things are good. Things are good. It's part of the reason that my schedule has been what it is I started a new job in January, as you well know, but not everyone does. And so I have been hard to lock down. I've been traveling a lot, been doing a lot of different stuff, been a lot of stuff going on, and now I think it's planed out a little bit, to use a term, but I think it's a little flatter, and I think that we can, I can get some stuff in my schedule and get it scheduled, and I'm going to try to come out. I was just telling you a moment ago, I'm going to try to come out to visit, maybe this summer sometime. Which would be nice.
I am thankful for the fact that we do live fairly close to each other, because I mean, if we lived across the country from each other, we wouldn't be able to do it. You know what I mean?
No, and I don't have to cross the Rockies to see you.
Right. Yeah.
Crossing the Rockies is expensive.
Anytime you have to do anything with that, no, not trying to do it. Sorry, I'm fiddling with my lighting. I know right now. All right.
It's a great time.
So, anyways, who are you? Seven.
I'm 7. I'm as average as they get. I'm an average height. I'm above an average weight, according to my.
Are we talking American weight?
Person.
Or are we talking like?
So I am the BMI, the body mass index. I am considered obese on that. Thank you very much. So
let me check that off the conversation list here.
Yeah, we wanted to cover my body weight for sure. No, actually, no lie. The last time I had to, there's a check that I have for like insurance reasons, and it's in this was a new person. She was checking me. She was like, your weight is it's a little high. I'm serious right now. She's like, yeah. It's like, okay, well, all right. Well, how high? She goes, oh, you're definitely obese. And I was like, Yeah,
You are
she's
not.
using the
You are
no,
not.
no. She's using the BMI, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, is there like another way you can approach that particular conversation with me? And so she was like, I mean, I could actually test your body fat, but I'm gonna have to pinch you with this here tool. And I was like, why don't we do the pin? Why don't we let's do the tool pinching? I think the tool pinching is a great idea, right?
Let's do that.
Because you're gonna ding me for on insurance because some random person in the laboratory
Yeah.
said anybody this height should weigh exactly this much. And,
Yeah.
I have a muscle density much higher than most people. So, yeah, she did the whole pinch thing. It was fun. My body fat's like well down there, but she was still like.
That conversation goes vastly different with my doctor and I. And she says, "Well, we would like to see you lose some weight, I think." And my response typically to that is, "Well, ma'am, we would like to see us be a millionaire, but
Oh, there's lots of things we'd like to see in the world.
Yeah, we don't always get what we want, do we?"
No, we don't. Yeah, so to answer the question, I'm as average as they come.
Very well.
wife, 2 kids, 2 dogs, whole 9 yards. Yeah, so that's me. I work in the technology industry, as I've talked about before. And I have a lot of strong viewpoints, loosely held. Which is one of the reasons I love talking to you about stuff. Is
Yeah, man.
have conversations about stuff and do that. So
Well, I think that's why you and I kind of connect too, right? Is we're kind of the same apple in that respect, I think.
Yep. The conversation is the fun part, right?
Indeed.
Friends are made around conversations, not agreements. So that's fun. So yeah, former musician is anyone who is watching on YouTube can see in the background. By the way, if you're listening to the podcast, we do also stream on YouTube, and you should go check us out. Real Talk and with Hapa and 7. You should check that out. It's worth checking out. We go to a lot of trouble to make sure our backgrounds look good.
Yeah.
Subscribe, smash that like button, right? Whatever they say. The kids say these days.
It used to crack me up when people would say it really helps the algorithm, but it actually does help the algorithm.
So yeah, putting a bow on mine. I played baseball for a while. Play golf now because I can't play baseball anymore. So, yeah, that's kind of me. Hapa, who are you, friend? That's what that's what really people want to know is who are you?
Yeah.
That's really.
I'm sure inquiring minds are really wanting to know.
Yes. I think that's true.
I'm Hapa, retired Navy, old salt guy, fully retired from the real world. Can't believe it's going on. It's actually 2 years. It was 2 years, 5 days ago. I officially retired. Went into corporate America for only
That's
about
crazy,
2
man.
and a half
I remember.
years.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's been a crazy. I saw the little thing on Facebook does the little memories thing, and I was like, holy crap, it's been 2 years. Okay, well, but I only did corporate America for about 2.5 years, and that was 2.5 years that made me realize that I don't want to be in corporate America. And yeah,
2.5 years, and that was 2 years and 3 months too long. Yeah.
And so I retired, and I do the whole. We both do the content creation thing, streaming, and we both do a little entertaining on that side of the house. Yeah, we are like-minded folks, and we're just some. I always don't know. I'm not grown and raised in the South, so I feel like it's a little off for me to say I'm a good old boy. But at the end of the day, I really do feel like I'm a good old boy because I grew up in the country, even though it was country of Oregon. But
yeah, no,
but
I would definitely, if we were hanging out, which we have hung out, and we were hanging out, and I was guessing, I probably would have guessed one of the southern states.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're a good old boy.
I think living in Texas has definitely made me recognize the fact that I say I'm a born again Texan because I legitimately feel at home here, and I feel at home in the South. So, yeah, it is what
born
it is.
again Texan. I like that.
Born again Texas, man. Not all of us can come out of the womb with a 6-shooter on our hip.
Yeah, well, there are those who can, right? So, is Texas hot, Hapa?
Oh my! I don't think.
Is it hot in Texas, Hapa?
Oh, we had 2 full weeks of 3-digit temperatures, just straight every day. 107, 108, 109. I think the highest I saw was 111, but it said felt like 114.
Oh.
Yeah, no. And then we had 3 days where we were in the upper 80s, lower 90s, and I wanted to just lay out on the back lawn all day. It was glorious. And then now, today, we went back up over, and we're going to be staying in trip digits again. I will say this is the one part about Texas I do not like.
Yeah, the heat, yeah.
It's
I was
oh man.
It's been so you sent that eastward, right? So thanks for that.
Yep. You guys
we got that
it.
heat wave. Yeah, we got that heat wave, and dude, it's hot, man. And the hottest I've ever been. I mean, I remember it very vividly. I was in Red Rock Canyon, and I was standing on a rock, and it was the first time I realized I'd ever heard silence, which was interesting to me because it was like a existential moment, right? Because I'm standing on this rock, and I was like, I don't hear anything. Like you kind of lose sight of. In your normal life, you always have some sound, and so I'm standing on this rock, and I'm like in existential crisis mode, and I'm like, I don't hear anything. This is silence for the first time, and then I realized I was cooking. So I'm like standing on this rock. Yeah, it was 116 degrees, and it was like, the heat was coming down and then back up, and I was
that's
like,
an intrusive heat.
Yeah. Oh. Well, look, people here in Alabama very arrogantly, and generally it's people who've never been anywhere, right? They very arrogantly go, "Oh, but it's a dry heat." No,
don't matter. It don't matter.
Like 116 is 116, buddy. Like the vultures were like circling, watching. They're like, this guy's cooking. This could be good. Yeah. So the heat has been a lot this year. In fact, I was reading earlier, right? And you and I were talking earlier this week, the 4th. The report came out, I think, on the 5th, right? AP News is where I saw it, but it came out on the 5th that Tuesday, July the 4th, was the hottest day Earth has ever experienced. Like, literally. That is a real thing. And then the next day, the 5th,
clear, though,
was hotter.
You're talking global average temperature.
Yeah, the planet itself has never been hotter, recorded history, never been hotter than it was on July the 4th, except on July the 5th, which was actually hotter, which was the day the first article came out. Yeah. So that's hot, right? And there's people everywhere.
Admittedly, this is only since recorded history was like 1979 or something like that, right?
Yeah, it really it's fair. Global temps are not like
clear.
It's not like there's not hieroglyphs.
They're writing what the temperature is.
I mean, maybe there are. Maybe we haven't translated it yet, but as far as I know, it's like the 70s. So yeah, in recorded history, it was the hottest day. And I remember getting my my truck. It was a black truck, and I'd been sitting in a parking lot. It said 118. 118. Now, 118 it wasn't, right? But a black truck sitting in the sun.
Yeah.
It's hot. And in Alabama, I think, really hot for us is like 102. If you get to 100, if you get to triple digits here, it's hot because you got like 80% plus humidity too. And it gets stifling. But for us, we got up to that 99, 100, 101, and that's hot here.
Yeah.
That is hot. We're normally in the 95 is where we are, and we had a couple of days, like you said, it went down to like 88, 89, and it was like, oh my god, everybody's wearing sweaters and parkas,
right?
And is it gonna snow? Is it gonna snow? It's like,
do you guys are you still affected by like a Gulf flow, like the air coming off the Gulf where you're at?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. We're here. We're subtropical, right? So we are one climate removed from being tropical, and so we actually get hurricanes make it all the way to us, right? They're generally a tropical storm when they get to us, but yeah, we get all that wind and weather comes right on top of us, and it turns into generally, every single day you have like an afternoon thunderstorm, which you have in tropics, right? That's a thing you definitely do in tropics, but we have those, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and they are violent and fun and amazing, and people come here from like San Francisco
to watch.
Like, oh my god, they're like lightning. Oh my god, what is that? The sky's on fire. Because
I tell you what, some of the most beautiful lightning storms, I always used to say the Gulf Coast it's some of the most beautiful storms. I say that kind of tiptoeing because they can also be the most horrifying, but the lightning storms.
Yeah, their storms are not messing around.
Right. I mean, when I lived in Southeast Texas, the storms that would come in, I mean, I loved sitting out on the back porch and just watching them head your way. You know what I mean?
That was always fun when you go to the coast because we're only about 5 hours from the coast, so we go down. It's kind of just a trip for us, and you sit on that Gulf Coast, and the water's beautiful, the beaches are amazing, and the storms are. I mean, they're epic, right? They're just unbelievable storms.
So we had the hottest recorded global average temperature, and then we broke the record the next day What
Yep.
what side of the spectrum are you in terms of, like, I'll say climate change because that's the new hip thing, right?
Sure.
But
Sure.
where are you? Do you think that we are having a significant negative impact on this whole thing?
Probably a couple ways to cut that. So I think, regardless, doing the right thing is the right thing, and trashing the planet is not the right thing, right? So
For sure.
for me, there are people who are like, we don't cause any, we're not causing any global impact, therefore I'll throw my McDonald's,
I think that's a little ignorant to think
Big
that way,
Mac
right?
out the
Yeah,
window,
yeah,
right? Like
for
they
sure,
do
for
that.
sure.
And I'm not trying to poo-poo on those people, but I think it's undeniable that humans have impacted the planet. Right now, the real question is, are we what's causing the warming, which is the
Right.
real thing that people are wondering. I don't know, but there's an awful lot of smart people that say we are, and most of the things those people recommend us doing, in my opinion, most of the things those people recommend us doing, I'm kind of cool with.
Yeah.
Why not
Yeah.
recycle? Why not
Yeah.
do some of these things? And then you get into like noodle straws, and I'm like, I ain't here for a noodle straw. Like,
Noodle straws.
right? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like the pasta straws. So there's
Yep.
like things, I think we should be good stewards. Um, and I kind of am that person anyway. What about you, man? Where do you kind of fall on that?
I have a very weird, probably, outlook on things because I look at things from a very nerd scientific level.
Yeah.
Like, geologically and anthropologically, the globe has gone through these heating and cooling cycles throughout time, and the living beings have never influenced that heating and cooling on the globe. Now, that being said, industrialized humans, what we talking
Yeah.
300 years, 400 years realistically that we've been on this planet. um, we've dropped nuclear bombs, we have
Yep.
strip mined huge
Yep.
portions of the planet, we have epically flattened rainforests, which is, people don't realize that the forests and oceans equally produce the same amount of oxygen for the planet. And we are holistically polluting all of that. So, are we the cause of the heating and cooling? I don't think so. Are we helping it be more rapid? I mean, I can't really say yes or no, but to think that we aren't, I think is. And when I say the word ignorant, by the way, I think there's a huge negative connotation toward that word ignorant. I literally
Sure.
mean, like, I'm ignorant to all kinds of things, right?
Sure.
I don't look at that as a negative word, but I think as humans,
You mean ignorant
I think,
in the term is unlearned, as in I
Yes,
haven't had
lack
an
of
opportunity
knowledge.
to or have not learned a thing. Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
But I also think that we are ignorant to the fact that if we think for 1 minute that we can stop this natural thing, stop it. Maybe reverse some of our impact that we've already had, sure, but stop it, I think, is a little ignorant in terms of like what I think we could do. Because to be honest with you, a lot of those solutions, when you're sitting in this nice, beautiful home, seem warm and fuzzy, but the outcomes of those is actually far more devastating, like how electric cars are built or solar panels are built, or you know what I mean, like all those things.
Have you and I talked about electric cars? Because I'll dive into
I don't
that
think
one.
I don't think we have, but I mean that would be a subject I'm pretty positive you and I could talk about for a very long time.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you. Like, there are cycles the planet goes through, certainly, and to say we're not impacting is silly. It's folly.
Sure.
We are
Sure.
impacting something.
Sure.
Right? You can go and look at the trash pile in the ocean, and no, we are impacting the planet in some ways. Are we the
Yeah.
total cause? That's really here and there, right? It is, to me, most of the things. Most of the things that are recommended are just responsible things we should be doing anyway. Like,
Yes.
what's really been interesting to me in that world, and this was not a planned subject, right? So that this is us off on a tangent for anyone listening.
Yeah.
What is really kind of fascinating to me in that world is, let's say that we double down or triple down or quadruple down and say we're going to get super serious about this, right? And we're going to stop behaviors that have polluted the planet in some ways that we think are unhealthy. Great. There there is an entire set of nations that are in their developmental period.
Yep.
That we would be saying, you cannot develop to where we are
because of
because you can no longer do these things because we kind of ruined it for you.
Yep.
And I think that's a fascinating.
But we already do that.
To me, that's a fascinating concept. No, we do it in a lot of ways, sure.
The thing that worries me is when you have governments that say you can't do X, Y, or Z because it's polluting the earth or whatever you want to go with the line of it is. But then you have other nations that are like, hey, we're not going to do what you guys do. I don't want to follow that at all. You know, I mean, you got China out there that is using far more carbon. They have a far bigger carbon footprint than a lot of the nations on the planet. You know,
than 7 planets in our solar system,
right? And
which are primarily built of carbon.
Exactly, and not to go more further in a tangent, but talking about electric vehicles, like their electric vehicle industry likes to tout that they have more electric vehicles on the road than Tesla, right? But then what they don't tell you is the government literally has lots that have tens of thousands of these electric vehicles just parked in them, rotting away, and they've registered all these vehicles just so they can have these numbers. Like, the people aren't actually driving. Nobody can afford those vehicles, right? Like,
electric cars are expensive.
Oh, I think some of those Teslas, I mean, don't get me wrong, new cars nowadays are expensive as all hell, but I mean, Tesla is, I think, far outside my means.
My God.
Yeah.
Yeah, new cars are crazy. Yeah, it's interesting to me talking about the ecological impact and environmental impact of stuff. We should be better anyway, and we should endeavor to do better because we know better. Yeah. What is the outcome? You being a better person, and that should be enough, right? Yeah, and that should be enough. And it's not for some people. Some people are like, I refuse to be a better person because I disagree with a thing, and it's like, well, I think we can all agree that not dumping automobiles into the Gulf of Mexico, that's probably not a great idea, right? Like, well, let's just dump oil into the Gulf of Mexico. Like, is someone okay with that? Like, are you sitting around saying there are people like, well, we ain't the cause? No, we are 100%
big stogie saying, let's do this.
Like, no, like, there's certain things we should be doing, right? And then there's like anything, what is it, in all things moderation, including moderation.
Yep.
So I
remember growing up, my dad pouring motor oil out in the yard.
Oh, dude, I saw something the other day that was the recommended. You dig a hole, you put like rocks and sand in the hole, and you pour your motor oil in the hole.
Yep.
That's what he told us to do.
Yeah.
What?
How about no? I remember specifically being young, helping my dad doing an oil change, and him pouring it like over a stump of a tree he didn't want to grow back.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah, I know how to keep this plant from growing. That gotta be harmless, right? And so I grew up in a place, man, where I grew up. There was a documentary released, and there was this whole corruption lawsuit in the state of Alabama against a particular company, and this company had knowingly polluted areas where they had plants, right? And I grew up really close to one of those, and I remember in the creek that we would all play in. I remember the day it turned rainbow color and everything died.
Oh my
and nothing
God.
ever lived in that creek again. I remember that. And so this documentary comes out about all this, these lawsuits, and honestly the EPA got involved, which thank goodness for, like, I'm not a big government, like huge government agency guy, but at some point companies aren't going to behave in our best interests.
Yeah.
And this area, for whatever reason, that plant did not get shut down. And so there's this study now of the people who have lived there over this long, and I was fortunate, right? My family moved in a much better spot, but the people that live there, there was a woman in this documentary. She had 7 kids who all died of cancer before she did, right? It's like,
my gosh,
there's something going on there, right? And then it's like, and there's all these stories in that area, and then you see the people that are living there, and because it's gotten so bad, the houses are worth nothing.
Yeah.
And so these people are like, I have nothing of value, right? I can't sell my house and move. I can't leave. I can't afford to go buy something somewhere nicer. I'm just stuck here, drinking cancer water for the rest of my life. So like there are things And what's really crazy to me is every time we think about like pollution and stuff, we tend to think about it, like you and I are going to talk about it. We tend to think about it at an individual level.
Right.
But what you said was really important. Industrialized.
Yeah.
Right. And there are industrial organizations who knowingly trash the environment. And that to me is where I'm like, that should not be a thing.
Well, and they're not only doing that, but they're also covering it up or doing things that sound like they're being ecologically friendly. Knowingly, they're not. Like, that to me is... And then, I don't know, it's one of those things that's like, you and I talked about, like, we can go on a huge tangent with it because there's been countless studies that have been done in areas like that. I mean, Flint, you know, is one of those places where
the poor people of Flint, they're still got messed up over.
Yeah, I mean, the river could catch fire. Like, if your river's flammable, I think there's something wrong, right? Like,
yeah, rivers don't normally do that.
They don't normally catch a fire like that. No, like.
Well, I mean, that was you and I were talking. There's another AP article, right, that we were talking about, which is talking about what is it? The headline is: Study says drinking water from nearly half of U.S. faucets contains potentially harmful chemicals. Nearly half of U.S. faucets. Yeah.
But what strikes me in that article, you talk about even too, though, the testing that's done.
Yeah.
They say harmful, but there is also substances that are found in the water that over long term can be found to be harmful as well.
Yep.
So not just those chemicals, right? Like, do you guys drink tap water in your house, or do you, like, how do you guys? Yeah, okay.
We filter it.
Yeah. So I have a filter, but I literally every time I go to the grocery store, I'm buying bottled water. Like hell, the dog even drinks bottled water because Pflugerville water here is so chemically treated, you can almost smell it when it comes out the tap.
Really?
It's not. I grew up in Oregon where the water quality is just, I mean, it's coming off the mountains. It's insane.
Yeah, it's pristine. It's relatively pristine, yeah.
Right. They add fluoride to it, which is something I also don't necessarily agree with. But, I mean, when I remember there was times when I was a kid drinking water like I've never drank water in my entire life, and just it tasted so wonderful because it's just good quality water. Here, you drink the water and you can kind of taste it, like it's just not right. You know what I mean? Like,
when you travel, right? You travel and you go somewhere and you're like, this is not the water I'm used to, and everywhere has a different.
Yep.
Everywhere has something slightly different, right?
Yep.
And I don't know if you're this way, but like I'm pretty convinced where I'm from, the water's pretty good, and so anything elsewhere just tastes different and weird to me. And then finding out that there's 40, I think it was 45% or something like that, is of all the water they tested had these PFAs or whatever the chemical was. It had this stuff in it, and I'm like, well, what's the solution? Well, the solution is to fix. I mean, we use lead pipes for a long time. Like, we do a lot of crazy stuff, but filter your water.
That,
really,
right?
That's the solution.
There's more to that because all the pills the medications that everyone takes with. I don't know if you know, but supplements, when you take it, case in point, you know, upwards of 80% of that supplement gets passed. Like, you don't absorb up to 80% of whatever supplement you're taking, and that's going back into the watershed. So on top of that, medications are the same way, chemical runoff from vehicles, all this stuff gets back into the water, and then they put chemicals in the water to counteract the chemicals. So it's like, you know, well,
yeah, it's it's like drugs with side effects, right?
Yes.
May cause. What were you fixing?
And in rare cases, death.
Right. May cause suicidal thoughts, and it's like I started with a runny nose. I ended up with suicidal thoughts. Like,
I'll take the runny nose.
Yeah, I'll go with a runny nose for $1,400, Alex. Like, so yeah, the fact that all these chemicals are in the water, we have a lot. You said something interesting. You talk about the watershed, right? You use that. Yeah. That word. I don't know if it's this way in Texas, but here we have signs everywhere in Alabama when you drive around. It tells you which watershed you're. It's like you got a highway and you're driving down a road or whatever, and it says you're entering whatever county, whatever city, whatever. We actually have those for watersheds, and it's like you're entering the whatever watershed. So you kind of know. And we've done. Alabama is the most biodiverse place in North America, and so we have more recently started taking pride in, making sure that water is clean. And that's really good, except it showed how dirty the water was.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So like the cleanup efforts are 10, 15 years long sometimes, right? To get water back in just like the shape where it's acceptable for the wildlife, right? And that's not even talking about human beings, which our bodies react if we drink. You're in the jungle and you drink some water, you're gonna have a hard time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like we're not really well suited to a lot of bacteria and some of the stuff you just find in water naturally, much less the litany of chemicals that seem to be making their way in these days.
You've traveled internationally, I'm going to assume, right?
Only in North America.
So you haven't gone into Europe or nothing like that?
I've not been to Europe, no.
One of the YouTubers that I follow, they both quit their jobs, bought a van, did the whole living from a van thing, traveling over the U.S., and now they've started branching out globally more. And one of the things they talk about is they spent 90 days in Italy, and they ate horribly. I mean, the food that they were eating was probably the fattiest, cooked with butter, oil, everything that you think of here that they tell you to kind of moderate, right? Both of them just said they never felt better in their lives, though. Never felt like more healthy in their life. Came back here, went back to their whatever crazy hardcore diet they had.
Yep.
And they were talking about how horrible they felt during those 90 days. And both of them had a realization that while they were in Italy, they were pretty sure it was because of how the water's treated over there. It's not treated over there, actually. It's naturally transported across rocks and everything, which is nature's filtration. And then it comes out right into the cities and you drink it directly. Whereas here, we do a lot of chemical everything, and your body's going to have a reaction to this stuff, even if they don't tell you. You're going to have a reaction.
Some percentage of humans will have a reaction. Yes, 100%. Sure. Maybe, it's harmless to 98% of humans. That's a lot of people. That 2%? Yeah. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's a lot of people. Yeah, I was watching some documentary, and I'd love to, maybe I can figure out later what it was and send it to you, but it was about France. It was about Paris. I think the Paris water system. And they were talking about, how good the public water system is. Yeah. In Paris. And there's a startup. There's a guy here, and he owns a startup, and one of the things he's doing is it's a hardware startup, so it's not like software, right? It's a hardware startup. And one of the things he built this machine, and the guy comes from a background. He's got a mechanical engineering something or another. But he comes from a background of whatever the salination, whatever the water treat, like that was his focus.
Yeah.
And so he built this machine, and this machine filters your water and cleans it and makes it basically perfect. But you don't actually want perfect water, right? You want water to have some amount of minerals in it, some amount of, and that's why like you drink different waters. And this machine can mimic any water from anywhere. So he's got these these pods. Yeah, he got these pods. He's like, oh, you want water from like whatever volcanic filtration system and wherever, I can get you that water. And so like he can artificially create like perfect water and then into the water that you get somewhere else. And I have tasted some of those. And it's really cool to go do like a tasting of, most people wouldn't think like we're sitting here drinking whiskey, so we're going to do whiskey tastings. But how often would you go do like a water tasting? And you'll line up, 8, 9, 10 glasses, and you'll go through and drink them, and it's different. And I'm like, that's pretty freaking amazing. Of course, are people going to buy this machine? I don't know how many people they're going to spend $2,000 or whatever it's going to take to have a machine that's like, I want this water. Can you imagine you're someone who cooks?
Oh man!
Can you imagine
water quality affects everything?
Nailing a recipe because you got exactly the water you wanted.
Yeah, pasta or whatever. I mean, water quality is very important for those things. Like, I think water quality isn't sufficiently important thing here in the States because people don't travel enough, I think.
Meaning they don't get exposed to difference?
Yeah, and I don't know if... I think it's just simply because people are... I like my place. I like where I live. I don't need to leave my little town kind of mentality. So I think there's a lot of people that have... they just have Well, going back to what we said earlier, it's ignorance. Like you just don't know any better. Like
Yeah, it's just it lack of exposure, right?
right. Right.
You didn't go
And it's
anywhere,
like you
and
said, like you've tasted water in different areas, so you know the difference. You know, it's just the same way. And you and I have talked about it before. How like where I'm originally from, Bend, Oregon, for the longest time was considered the craft beer capital of the world because the water quality was so good coming right off the Deschutes and right off of the mountains that beer just thrives there. It's a great place to produce great beer. You know.
yeah,
'cause
in
the water
Alabama we got
quality's
swamp water. That's what
yeah,
we got.
exactly.
We got swamp
Which you need
water.
to
We got
reverse
rivers.
osmosis it, right? You need to filter it and all that stuff.
Right, because humans shouldn't live here.
Exactly.
It's not human friendly, people. What do we have to? What does the planet have to do to tell you don't have to live here? Move north.
So
Yeah,
I mean, at the end
water.
of the day, you and I need to invest in water bottling companies, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll hook you up with Tyler, right? He's the guy that owns this company.
Let's
I was
go
talking
in.
about. So maybe I can get you out here and we can go visit Tyler and I can be like, hey, it's my guy here wants to taste all the different waters. I do wonder though, you know, if you were like, I want to, you know, I was in Italy, I had this water from this aquifer in Italy,
Yeah.
and because I was in that area, you know, it was a home cooked meal, and this water was used for this pasta, and it was amazing. I really do wonder. That'd be a fun challenge to be like water tourism. Like, can
Crazy
you
would be.
find out right what was in that water? Because all he's got to have is a sample. He's got whatever he needs to like break it down. That would be really freaking cool because you could be like, all right, I'm gonna make that pasta again.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that'd be cool.
To be fair, if you can market, I suppose for me the biggest problem is to be able to affordably market those things to the average person. Because even
Yeah.
a water softener, like everybody tried to recommend getting a water softener for the house when I first bought this house because the water's
Right.
so hard here. That's $6,000-7,000 to get a good water softener installed, and then you got maintenance that you got to do every however long. Like, so I mean, I guess it depends on how far you want to go, and not too many people want to do that. They want to just go back to the days when you and I were young, drinking from a garden.
Dude,
hose
drinking from a
out the
hose,
back,
playing with lawn darts.
right?
Right.
Throw it
The
up
good old
there and
days.
see where it would come down.
Ah, yeah, the good
Those are
old days. You drank right out of the factory sewer pipe. Put hair on your chest, boy.
Oh,
So,
man.
there was actually where I grew up, and I told you about the place where I grew up, right in the creek. There was a natural spring not too far, and you could go, and the water was just like so cold and so fresh, and it was drinkable, right? And it was unpolluted. But if you ever do get exposed to like that level of water, it's pretty cool. But you know, at the end of the day, the first two subjects we talked about, like water and look, whether you believe humans are contributing significantly to global warming, climate change, whatever, don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Like,
Yeah.
is it really gonna kill you to take your McDonald's and put it in a trash can, or is it gonna kill you to recycle something? Is that really that? If you're the kind of person that's like, that's too much to ask of me,
Right.
you need to reinvestigate your investment in
Right.
humanity, friend. Right? You do have a place on this planet. Like we all are sharing it, right, in some capacity. And being a responsible human, you actually say it all the time. Be a better human, right? Like,
Yep. Be a better human.
yeah. And I'm the
I
kind of
think
guy.
that's huge.
Yeah, and like I was talking to my wife earlier, and you know, my kind of life strategy is be better every minute, be better every hour, be better every day, be better every week, be better every year. Just be better. And what's interesting about that is if you screw up, right, you're like, oh my god, I'm having a really rough time. The being better
Yep.
just decreases in time increment. Can I be better the next minute than I was this minute? The answer is yes. Then you can put together a streak, right? You
Right.
get back on a horse, put together your streak. Is that 2 minutes? Hell yeah, that's 5 minutes. Oh my God, that's 60 minutes. You're at an hour. And I really wish more people had that kind of mindset because I do think, regardless of what you believe as to whether humans, and we'll be long gone before that's actually solved,
Yeah.
right, and known, you should at least not be a jerk, you know? Now, but the noodle straws are too damn far.
I can't do it. Can't do it.
Noodle
Not
straws
gonna
are
do
too much.
Not gonna do it.
Guys, stop trying to
You,
make noodle
you
straws.
can't make me have a noodle straw and then print me a 40,000 page long receipt.
Yes.
You can't do
See?
that, okay?
Noodle
That's not how
straws.
that
That's where we
works.
draw the line, Hapa.
Exactly.
Noodle straws, damn it. And speaking of Hapa, drawing the line, it's
Speaking of
sad
noodles.
day. Yeah. Sad day. Ocean Gate has suspended their operations.
man.
I know a big surprise. For
I was
me,
about
at
to
least.
say it's not like I couldn't see that coming.
Yeah, snuck up on you like a glacier, right? Like, but Ocean Gate, 2 weeks or whatever it was after an implosion of a submersible, not going to call it a submarine.
Yeah. Well, it did
That
submerge,
was.
so I guess technically.
Oh, it's submersible. A lot of things are submersible.
Yeah.
What do they say? Every ship's a submarine if you try hard enough.
Exactly. Jesus.
But after this submersible imploded, which is its own fascinating, thing.
Accident
they've
aside.
announced there's. Yeah, actually, they've decided that they're gonna suspend operations. I think that's probably for the best. That's probably the right. If I was hired as a consultant for that business, I would say I think this is the right move, guys.
Right. First of all, can we just recognize the fact that it was a huge tragedy? The fact that a bunch of innocents lost their lives due to, once again, we talked about before, the arrogance of a
hubris
of a person. Yeah, hubris is a
flat hubris.
Word.
Yep.
Have you seen? I should have pinged you with this before we did the podcast, but have you seen the interviews that people have done with James Cameron?
Yeah. I saw a couple of those. During while all the events were going on.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
He talks about specifically. He was saying that there's materials that they utilize that I would never have used because of X, Y, and Z, and supposedly he had even told them, "This is why I wouldn't do this," and they were just like, "Eh, cheaper, lighter." Better.
Carbon fiber, they use carbon fiber, right? And for people who don't know, carbon fiber is a weave of carbon. It's a carbon fiber, right? So it's weaved carbon together, and you use an epoxy to harden it and create rigidity. And we used to use it when building race cars.
Yep.
And so with a race, I'm just going to go to the race car example for a second. When you build a race car, several things you're looking for. You want it to be lighter, and you want to be more rigid. Those two things in particular are in combat with each other all the time. Because you want to make it more rigid, add a support beam.
Yep.
That support beam, however, is heavy.
Yeah.
So it's a trade-off of weight versus rigidity.
Right.
So carbon fiber is like a big player in that field. The thing about carbon fiber is it doesn't wear like metal does. You think about metal, right, that dents and bends and stuff like that. Carbon fiber doesn't do that. It can be very rigid, but it can be very fragile. When it doesn't bend, it just turns into toothpicks.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated to learn, that the submersible was built with carbon. I think it was titanium frame,
a mixture,
and then carbon fiber.
of them, yeah.
Yeah, and that is apparently from what I've read, right? Non-expert, what I've read sounds like that was the downfall. You might get to 100 meters and metal might dent or creak,
Yep.
or leak a little bit, or bend or something, and you could be like, I don't want to do that. But then carbon fiber doesn't do that, right? There's just no warning.
Yeah.
It just gives and it's gone.
Well,
and an implosion, from a physics standpoint, is an incredibly interesting thing to me.
And in what way? Just how it happens, or
Just the physics of an implosion.
Mm.
So we can talk about that in a minute, right? Because I want to talk to you about the Navy hearing.
Yeah.
Right. So, but yeah. So like that materials, right? And you were saying titanium and.
Well, there's a reason why militaries throughout the world and even civilians that build submarines focus on high tensile steel and titanium as the primary building blocks for their submersibles, because it does flex, it does give, but it won't fail catastrophically like that. And the problem with carbon fiber is, like you said, once it starts to flex, it may go back, but then you've lost that rigidity at that point, and it's not capable of maintaining stability. And that was one thing that kind of blew me away when James Cameron was saying it passed, that submarine passed all of its testing. So it passed the initial dive, it passed the second dive, it passed the third dive, but by the third dive, you probably had stretch fractures and water starting to seep through, and you went on the actual dive, and it wasn't okay at that point, right? So
Yep.
I just think it's but also not to knock the folks that went down in that sub, but I'm sorry, there is a bit of culpability there to me. Like I don't know that I would have put my life in the hands of any company diving that deep. right?
It would be very hard for me to make that whatever mental gymnastics I would need to go through. I'm claustrophobic anyway, right? So I'm gonna. Right. There was a moment that I read about or saw or something about that submersible, about how it was closed. Because if you remember, during the whole whatever 4-day period, whatever it was, that we were all kind of obsessively trying to figure out whether this thing was gone or not. The best case scenario was that it imploded.
Yep.
Right. For the folks on the submarine, that was the best case scenario.
Yep.
So there was a period of time though where it was like, no, at the hour, every hour we're hearing knocking, whatever else, and that kind of faded off, and we don't know what that was, and all it was unrelated. And then there was this whole thing I read about the submarine isn't buoyant enough or the submersible was not buoyant enough to break the surface of the water. So it would have been 1 or 2 feet below the water. It was painted white. White would be very hard. Probably one of the harder colors. You could have painted it like ocean blue, and that would have been harder. But white's pretty hard because the top of the ocean is white very often. From glare or weight, whatever. So that. But there was something I found super fascinating when I learned about that, which was it was closed from the outside, and you couldn't open it. And I gotta be honest, man. If I'm on some boat and I'm like, I paid all this money, I'm gonna get in the submersible, and I'm gonna go see the Titanic. I'm super excited. And you're like, yeah, let's close it. And someone starts from the outside. I'm gonna be like, hey, wait a minute, where's the handle? There ain't one. Don't need my money back.
Yep, I need out.
I don't need my money back, but y'all don't want to be in here with me. Right? This is gonna go badly for us. So I think there were a lot of warning signs. I think there's, it's interesting. It was a tragedy. I think you did a good job starting off there. The internet did not treat it like a tragedy. I'm a little ashamed of the internet. Not gonna lie.
Well, I hate to say
a little disappointed.
But people are garbage. I mean, in that respect.
The garbage?
Right?
You said garbage? Did you say garbage?
Just pure garbage. Okay. I don't understand, going back to what you're saying, how it needed to be secured from the outside. Why at any point, any vehicle, exploration vehicle, would be secured in that? That's why the Apollo capsule was completely re-engineered, right?
Tell me.
The Apollo 1, they did an pure oxygen test. The Apollo capsules were sealed from outside. There was no means for them internally to extricate the vehicle if there was an emergency, because they said, well, they would never need to do that in space. There's no need for it. So they didn't do it. There was a spark in the cabin, and as graphic as it sounds, the entire crew was incinerated, because the pure oxygen environment plus fire is, well, horrible. There was nothing they could do.
It's not ideal.
No. And the fire inside was so intense it warped the capsule, so they couldn't even get the door open when they tried to get it open. And that prompted an entire re-engineering of the Apollo capsule so that it could be, if in a case of emergency, they could get out from inside. And unfortunately, 4 astronauts lost their lives because of that. But it's like, if you're the one being, let's just say from a purely professional standpoint, you're the one being sealed in, you don't at one point have anything in your brain that says, hey man, I need a way out. I know a lot of engineers, Hapa, like a lot of engineers. And to be an engineer means something. You don't just get the title of engineer. Right. You go through a lot of learning, obviously, and a lot of testing, and the majority of that testing and learning is around what people who have come before you have learned that they would like to pass on to you. Right. That's how we build taller buildings and longer bridges and all these things that we do. And so ignoring that to me is just folly. Yeah. Saying I am so much smarter than everyone who ever came before me that I'm not even going to do this set of things, right? You're talking about the Apollo, the Apollo situation is a great example, right? Some engineer somewhere, very smart at engineering, very not smart in maybe some other ways, thought, well, they're not going to need to do that in space. Well, this thing isn't only going to be in space. Yes.
Right, your best chance to save them is sitting in the ocean after they land, right? And if X, Y, and Z, right, there's things that could go on, and so the only way that we as a species learn is through discovery, and generally discovery can be messy. And so someone who absolutely flew in the face of that, like this guy, this Ocean Gate guy. Like there's videos of him talking about, oh, I don't need to follow safety
Oh my god.
precautions, right, and stuff like that. I'm just like, I really hate that the tragedy happened. However, the headline is Ocean Gate suspends their operations. Like I said, I think that's the best move. There were
Probably
what I read was there were 10 submersibles in the world at the time capable of reaching, the spot that they were going to, and of the 10, the Ocean Gate one was the only one not certified.
Yep.
So, yeah, and that to me is like
the statement's purely about I don't need to follow safety, whatever. I mean, if rules are, a lot of people don't realize if you haven't worked in a government realm, safety guidelines and things like that are typically in place due to prior incidents where people lost their lives. Like, they're not just somebody that said, we should probably do this just because it sounds good. Like, that's not how the government works. Like, if you think that's how it works, I'm sorry. I got a couple bridges that I can sell you real cheap. But
are you saying that OSHA doesn't just make up handrails for no reason?
Yeah. Like, they don't have some guy sitting in a closet with a chalkboard writing ideas for rules,
what could
right?
go?
Like,
what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly.
And how can I ruin everyone's fun by saying stairs must have handrails? Right?
God,
like I'm the fun ruiner. Like, no, someone fell off the stairs.
I think really upsets me is the fact that I don't remember how many people passed away there. Was it like 10 people or something?
No, it was like 6 people total.
That to me is
including the owner.
Insanely tragic that that happened. I mean, a dad and his son, and but there is a bit of well, like we talked about hubris that occurred there that I think their responsibility should be put on that owner, unfortunately.
Oh, 100%. I think 100%. It's I was watching a documentary and I forget which flight it was. There was a flight that disappeared over the ocean and been never found, right? And it was one of a few flights that have never been found. And really the entire documentary is about the pilot being at fault. That's really what you're trying to solve. Like, who is at fault for the whatever. And when you're talking about some tragedy like that, people are naturally going to say who caused that issue.
Immediately.
And sometimes and sometimes it's hard to solve. Like in the case of this flight, they're like, oh, was it the air traffic controller? Was it the software in the airplane? Was it the pilots? People are trying to figure it out. But in the case of this submersible, it was a guy.
Yeah.
It was a guy, right? And he did the thing, and he did the thing. He knew he did the thing. He put people's lives at risk for money. He knew he was doing it. Whether his psyche would let him acknowledge that he was actually putting people at risk or not, that's really not relevant, right? He actually did it, and he actually was told, and all those things are true. So yeah, it is unfortunate. It's super unfortunate, especially for the people who getting back to the implosion, right? What I was reading is they would not have had time to even process what was happening. There was no pain. So again, it was like the ideal situation. If you're in that, it's much better than sitting at the bottom of the ocean for 4 days and running out of air, as an example, right?
Which was for sure.
One of the other options. For those folks, right, they're as a way to go out, right? That's not that bad, right? That's as a way to go out. That's not that bad. But the people you left behind, right? That is infinite levels of suffering for those. Yeah, that's the suffering that's just like will never end. They'll never have closure. They'll never have, whatever. It's gonna be forever. What if I had done this? What if I had done that? What if something was different? What if I had said something different? What if I had whatever? Because that's the way it works. Whenever we lose someone, and I've lost people in tragic circumstances, right? And I know personally that's what happens. What if I had done this? What could I have done different? How could I have avoided the tragedy? Because it was so unexpected, right? It wasn't the natural course of events.
Right.
And so I definitely think that the owner of that company and the company at large, right? If you're someone who worked at that company and for 2 weeks kept trying to sell trips to the Titanic, I think someone should look at that. 2 weeks later, you're still saying, "Hey,
let's do this."
Yeah, I want to do this. Like, okay, guys. Like, someone needs to show up and be an adult in the room and be like, look, this is over. Right? I can't believe I'm having to tell you it's over.
Yep.
But it's over, right?
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, they didn't shut down operations till a couple days ago.
To think that even needs to be a conversation, like, to me is pretty incredible too. I mean, it's you're not wrong. It's like implosions on vessels going under the water is not like
so let's talk about that.
Where you see like bolts popping off and creaking, and so the creaking, first of all, creaking and popping and crackling sounds are normal on submarines when they go underwater because
Yep.
the
'Cause
sub
metal
literally
bends.
shrinks, right?
Yeah.
My dad always used to talk about they would run
Is your
from
dad
the
a
port
submariner?
side to the starboard. He was, yeah, on big boomers, the nuke subs,
Okay.
nuclear missile subs. They would run a rope from one side to the other, and they'd literally attach it, and it'd be taut when they were on the surface, and then they would dive, and as they dove, the line would slowly dip because the subs are engineered and built to compress. Like,
Sure.
they become more structurally sound as they compress. Obviously, there is a maximum point, but and they would shrink, or they would do stuff like they'd put items into torpedo tubes, and then when they were at depth, they would equalize the pressure from outside the sub to in the tube, and then they take the item out, and it'd be like a full size pint cup, styrofoam cup would be the size of like a Barbie doll cup, like it'd be itty bitty because it got crushed down so much. But the implosion, you're 100% correct. Like, they literally could have been mid conversation about what they were going to look at first, and then just that's it.
And it's gone. And apparently during the implosion, the inside of the submarine reached roughly the temperature of the sun, or a little bit hotter.
Yep.
And to put it in perspective for anyone who's just kind of listening and doesn't know a lot about this, the submarines you're talking about, like the big nuclear submarines that the United States Navy would use, say Ohio class, let's say.
Yeah.
Those subs are rated at like 3,000 feet.
Yep. Maximum.
Right? Now, absolutely, can they go deeper? Will they under duress? Yes. Right?
Yeah,
But the engineer said, you know what, we're absolutely really good with 3,000 feet or 3,500.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
We're really good around there. Could you hit 5,000 or 6,000? Probably. You might even go
Sure.
further. This submarine was going for 13,000. That is significant pressure
Yeah, yeah.
that you're talking about getting down to. So yeah, it's when you talk about the submarines compressing, it reminds me of the SR-71s, because they would leak fuel on the ground. The Blackbird airplanes. I don't know if you're familiar with that, they were made to fly at such a height and such a speed that the metal actually would expand. And in fact, what they had to do was there were gaps in the metal. When it was on the ground, it leaked fuel, and that was a huge
Like a sieve. It would just be gushing fuel
just
out
falling
of
down.
the aircraft. Yeah.
So engineers, when given the opportunity to do cool stuff, they come up with some amazing, elegant, cool solutions, like a shrinking submarine that the rope, like gets slack in it, and that is really freaking cool. So I guess just to put a bow on it, don't ignore that, right?
Oh.
It's worth paying attention to. Be safe out there, and if somebody tries to put you in a situation, and you're like, this ain't it, and you get that feeling, feel free to follow it.
Do you think? So let's shelf that. Let's say SpaceX opens commercial flights to space.
Okay.
Is there going to be a 7 in
Nope.
space?
No.
Not so much.
There's not. It's funny. I think 30 years ago I gave you a very different answer than that. I was going to be a pilot.
Okay.
I was the kid who went to space camp multiple times. Right. I was obsessed.
Oh, I didn't know all this. Okay.
Yeah, I was obsessed with that. Appointment to Air Force, all this stuff. Was obsessed with all this stuff. But now, right, looking at where I am now, I have kids, and there are risks that I'm willing to take, and there are risks that I'm not willing to take. Would it be a thrill? Yes. If I were to go up in, let's say, a rocket, right? Great example, I think.
Sure.
Hey, you can go visit the International Space Station for a week. That sounds really cool and really attractive. But if the chance of failure is, 3% or more, which is car wrecks or whatever it is,
Right. Yeah.
I'm probably not okay with it. And that's I think that's I don't want to call it a sign of maturity, but it's I have things I want to be here for.
No, that's a perfect answer. I totally respect that. I'm the same way. I there's too much for me to do and live for here. I can see that. I'm good. I'm fine.
Yeah. And the space station is cool. If you ever watch it?
Yeah.
It is cool. Like, I would love to be like, that seems like really cool.
Waving back. Nobody can see me. Whatever.
Yeah, but like, have you ever watched it go across the sky?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
see the ISS go across, and like, that'd be cool. Look up, like, oh, Daddy's up there. But then
I
also,
think the idea of it's the same idea with the sub. If I need to get out, you're dead. You're not getting out.
yeah, you're not.
There's no escaping anything. Like, and that's to me is like, I'll leave that for those explorers that have far more chutzpah than than I ever.
Yeah.
Sorry if I said that wrong. For the
what's
Yiddish
funny?
folks, but
What's funny though, if you think about it, let's talk about the Apollo 5.
yeah,
We're going to the moon, right? We've decided to go to the moon. Going to the moon wasn't really that big a deal. Getting back from the moon was a huge deal.
yes,
And so, like, that's why the Apollo 5 was so special, right? Russians were putting basically intercontinental ballistic missiles and putting humans on the top and being like, to space
good
you
luck.
go. Right. And you are gone.
And a
Maybe
few
you
of those
come
had
back.
catastrophic results.
Right, because that's not the thing. But that was
Right.
what NASA did, and what was one of the huge ordeals about like building, that whole program was, we're gonna bring them back, and so everything had to be rethought
Yeah.
from the ground up because you got to come back. That's actually where all the risk occurs. When you're coming back, when like space, I can probably get you out there.
Yep. But we
And if you
can't
just
get
wanna
you
keep-
out there.
Right? If you just want to keep going towards the sun,
We can do it.
Like, we can do it. You want to come back home?
It's kind of
It's
a
a lot harder.
crapshoot. I'll be honest.
Yeah, that's kind of a maybe. Now, I will be honest. I'm not a huge Elon Musk fan in his current iteration. I
Sure.
don't think he hasn't reached his final form, but in his current iteration, he's pretty trolly. I think he's gotten bored with Earth. He believes he lives in a simulation that he's won.
I believe he's going to Mars, man. I think he's gonna be.
I hope he does, man. He thinks we're all NPCs. So like, but I will say, having said all that, SpaceX is doing some really good stuff. Like, they're really, really good at what they do, landing the rockets. Like, it is really cool. And if you had asked me 20 years ago about privatizing the space industry, I would have been like, I don't think there's people out there that can do it. And so there are, right? And they're doing it. And I think that's really cool. And I do think we'll see commercial space travel in our lifetimes.
I think he, like we said, all things put aside for him specifically, like what he's done, the team that he's gotten together. I mean, just the idea of having a reusable rocket that takes off and lands, and it lands autonomously, right? Like, it doesn't need to be steered. It does it on its own and corrects itself and and disposes of itself if there is actually an issue.
Yep.
That to me is pretty amazing. And the fact that the engineers, I mean, the amount of money that he's thrown and has been thrown at that company, I mean, it's, I don't know, man. I think he'll go. I think it'll go to Mars eventually, for sure.
I think he'll go. I'm not joking when I truly believe he believes we live in a simulation.
Yeah,
And why wouldn't he?
sure.
Right, given his level of quote, we'll call it quote unquote personal achievement, right? And,
Sure.
I'm not going to take too much credit away from him, but I'm also going to credit those around him. Right? There's been no one gets that level of success without some people around them making sure they get that level of success.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So like, I don't, he can't take all credit for anything, but he has won the game. I mean, like, richest single human being on Earth, does whatever he wants to do, goes where he wants to go, buys social media platforms, rocket companies. Tesla made the battery tech open, right? That other people could use it. Now we have all these electric cars and battery chargers and all these things. Like, it's, the wake of someone with that much resources, the wake they leave in the water is big.
Totally.
Good and bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's one of the things I think that really hurt this. I shouldn't say it hurt this country, but I think it hurt humanity. Realistically, was us essentially sacking NASA altogether.
Dude.
Like,
Okay, another podcast. And one day I'd like to talk. Maybe we should do. We should do moments in history.
I'm down.
We want
Let's
to
go.
like we should make a list of like moments in history we want to talk about.
We're gonna have to do a jingle though. We have to have a jingle for it.
Moments in history. Yeah, we should.
with
Yeah,
like
we
a
should do
shooting
that.
star. No, that's already there.
Yeah,
There you go.
I
That's
can make
fine.
it. I'll make us a jingle.
Let's go, man. Let's do this.
Yeah, like the NASA, the moments of NASA, right? And that was
Yeah.
primarily back in the Obama administration, right? And it was a defund moment where Obama said we're gonna change the funding of NASA, and it was not within Obama's presidential powers to do so.
Yep.
And as a result, there's an awful lot of rocket scientists who were like, okay. So now India's got a space program, right? Because they're willing to spend the money. China's got a much better space program because they were willing to spend the money. You literally lost the brain capital of rocket scientists, right? And that was something we had spent, World War II, we actually let Nazis come over and be rocket scientists for us. Like
Literally.
Literally. You go to Huntsville, Alabama, right? I've been a billion times, right? You go and you see the Von Braun Center, right? Well, Von Braun, what he was building is buzz bombs. That's what he was doing.
Yep.
And America was like, hey, that's pretty cool.
We can do
build
that.
something that come build us something, right? So, it was a long arc of Americans spending a lot of energy in that space, and I will just say this kind of openly. What I loved about NASA, and what I still love about NASA, is they're developing technology for the purposes of exploration.
Yep.
And most of the technology that people develop these days at that level is for the destruction of civilization in some fashion. Like, how do I blow something up better? And NASA's like, no, how do I just explore? And I really think we missed the ball quite a bit when we defunded in some ways NASA and put them on a path to having to figure out how to go to Mars with $4.95 and a ham sandwich without mustard.
No mustard.
No mustard. Yeah, they didn't get the mustard. Went in the budget.
I can't do that. I'll bring the packets with me.
If you're gonna have a ham sandwich,
you gotta have mustard, man. You gotta.
Dijon or yellow mustard guy?
Depends on the sandwich, man. Depends. I'm a big mustard fan. I love mustard
Are
on
you?
just about everything.
Really?
From hot dogs to potato salads to burger, like I'm all about the mustard.
You're a mustard guy.
Spicy or whatever, I don't even care, man. I'm all about
Interesting.
it.
Did not know that.
Yep.
So next subject, right? Something we want to talk about. Something you and I
I'm
have
excited.
been. I am too. And this is something that we make a point on the podcast not to talk specifically about gaming too much because we do a lot of that, right? We make content around gaming, and it's actually how you and I met the first time. But we are gamers, right? We are lifelong gamers, and one of the things we get super excited about is when we find a new game that we think is interesting or cool. But especially if we find one that's fun, right? You find a lot of video games that are interesting, sure. You find some that are cool, yeah. You find some that look great, sure. But a game should be fun. And there was a game that you and I kind of came across recently, and I think a lot of we're not alone. But the game is called BattleBit Remastered. And for anyone who is not seen this game, it's a first-person shooter. But the game is focused around gameplay mechanics and smoothness of gameplay mechanics. It looks a lot like Roblox would look. So if you don't know Roblox, these are Lego character-looking characters. The buildings are very pixelated. It's very low polygon count from a game standpoint, and as a result, the game runs brilliantly. It's smooth. We started noticing all these things. Well, Hapa, you found a video talking about the success of this game. Run us through that video so we can talk through the kind of what this game has actually done. It's pretty impressive.
So firstly, BattleBit isn't like an EA produced game or any of those big game publishers. It's literally three guys have been developing this game, I believe, for the last 3 years. I might be off in the time frame. Apologies if I am. But it went live and launched on Steam a week ago. And within that week, they've sold almost $30 million worth of the game. The game is $15.
At $15, yeah.
$15. And Steam takes, what is it, a 20% cut, I think? I
think it's 30%.
Is it 30%? I can never remember.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, yeah.
But still, for a three-man dev team, you've got a functional first-person shooter that I say it's Minecraft level graphics. It's a little better than
that's
Minecraft,
fair.
to be clear.
That's fair, yeah.
But essentially, the graphics of Minecraft a little bit higher fidelity than that, but the mechanics are spot on. The shooting mechanics, there's no lag, there's no stuttering. I mean, the hit reg, to me, I don't know. I think you've played more than me, but I haven't noticed any issues with hit reg. pings don't seem to be a problem. You're doing 127 versus 127 if you want on a map, which is it's pure chaos. Like
that's the 254 people, guys. Let's.
That's nuts. Just pure. You're talking with tanks and helicopters and four-wheelers and rockets and sniper fire and machine gun fire and
people hanging off of ropes under the helicopters and
last night we were playing and this helicopter kept orbiting in a circle with dudes hanging from a rope from the bottom of it like a pendulum, just smacking them up against buildings as he flew around. I mean it's legitimately the way that I put it. We talked about this the other night. The way I see it, companies that produce like Battlefield and Call of Duty they bank on the fidelity of the graphics so much that the game mechanics fall apart. And the game mechanics are so bad, but people love the cinematics and the beautiful graphics so much, they figure it evens out. Battlefield 2042 is a perfect example of, to me, an epic failure on EA's part, because they had a huge franchise that had the ability to be amazing, and they just ruined it because they tried to focus too much on that. And you have and still today this game is over. I mean, Battlefield is a couple years old now. Still has stuttering, still has hit issues, still has all kinds of issues in latency, lag, and everything. And if you can give me a shooter that has Battlefield-esque feel, but is right spot on with all that, you're gonna blow away the competition. And I'm sorry, I mean, I've only been playing for 2 days. I'm like, yep, I'll throw out all the rest of the shooters that I have, and I'm good. Like,
yeah, the video, and I guess maybe we could put a link in the description on YouTube. But the video is really interesting because it talks to the developers, and there's interviews with these developers, and one of the things they're talking about is how much they listened to customer feedback through testing. And so there were these closed testing. Yeah, it was these closed testing, and apparently they start off with a concept, and the concept was very much Arma, right? It was sim level concept, and they got to a point, and they showed it to some people, and people were like, "Look, the graphics are not matching up to what you're trying to do gameplay wise." And so one of the developers, I think it was like the lead developer, said, it was a hard decision to make. He didn't like making it, but he went back and was like, it does need to be an arcade game, right? And they went back and kind of readdressed it. And so there were these moments in this history of this game where their primary focus was to listen to people who were trying to play the game.
Yep.
And adjust their behaviors and be like, okay, well, I'm hearing you. How do we get where we want to go based on your feedback and pay service to your feedback? And I think that there's a lot to be said for a game company who listens to the player base in such a way that the players feel heard. It's important. Like if you create software, sometimes you hear what the users say and you do react to it. They don't feel that you did. And so it's important not just that you react, but they feel that you react. And so it led to a game that honestly is just addictive. Like we can sit with some friends, and we did last night, and just play for 2 to 3 hours, and we laughed the entire time.
Yeah.
And I mean, I went 4-11 the last match we played. I mean, I was horror bad, right? I was like, every time I would spawn, I got shot, right? I was like, ting, ting, ting. I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me with this? But I had a blast. Yeah. And that is a good, first of all, good looking out, right? To the guys at BattleBit, right? Like, good for you. Well done. Way to listen to your people. Way to be true to yourself, be true to your community, and deliver something that people actually want to play. And then honestly, delivered it for $15.
$15, dude.
$15. It's $14.99 on Steam.
Come on, you can't go wrong. And there's going to be people, I think. Maybe I'm way off when I talk about how the graphics shouldn't be the primary sell, because for me, I used to be a huge Battlefield advocate. There was no other shooter but Battlefield.
I didn't know that.
Battlefield 3, Battlefield was my life. I love Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, Bad Company, all of them. And then they had Battlefield 5 that came out, Battlefield 1 that came out. Battlefield 1 was World War I, which anybody that knows history, World War One didn't exactly have the most exciting weaponry or
Yes.
fighting ever.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot
But
of different types of warfare then.
right. But they made a game that was very amazing and fun and attractive in that aspect, and it was okay. But it was getting a little bit on the side of I call it the Call of Duty crowd a little bit more. Like it was more Call of Duty esque. Well, that light is way too bright. Sorry about that. And then the new one came out, Battlefield 2042. Battlefield 2042, to me, they were trying to take Call of Duty and take Battlefield and have them make a baby, and this is where we are. And it just wasn't. It isn't fun like it used to be. Like the moments we had the other day where there was literally a helicopter flying right near the ground with people hanging off, the rockets flying everywhere, buildings coming down. I mean, that's Battlefield to me. Like, that's a Battlefield experience. Like, you have no idea what you're doing. Or like earlier in the night, you and I were on top of a building and we're looking around. All of a sudden, the building just collapsed out from underneath us.
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
That's a legit Battlefield thing. And to be able to do that and still have mechanics where if I aim properly and I pull the trigger and that thing gets hit, I mean, that alone is a home run for me. And so, yeah, to the BattleBit devs, home run, good job. Like,
yeah, good job.
I'll be playing that for a while. My hope, though, is that they don't get bought out by Infinity Ward or whoever.
If
right?
they do, let's silver lining that out. Let's Infinity Ward specifically. So let's say they get bought out, right? Let's say EA comes along and is like, you guys are geniuses. I hope that they are savvy enough that when they have their exit, which is what you call getting bought out, right?
Right.
We made a thing. We're gonna get $125 million for it, divided among the three of us. If they want, I hope they're smart enough not to take the 5-year deal with whatever company bought them out. I hope they are smart enough to say, no. I might want to go build something else. And now I have the money to do it the way I want to do it. And I would love to see what they have the ability to come up with.
I could see that. The only problem is anytime you bring money in from a publisher like that, they're going to say, well, we're going to own the rights.
Oh, certainly. No, I'm talking about they sell the game, they go independent. There's a music venue here in Birmingham, or used to be a music venue here in Birmingham called Bottle Tree, right? And Bottle Tree was, in my opinion, one of the best ever. There's a couple of really great venues here. And they're developmental venues, right? Because we're not the population wise, we don't support local bands at the level like maybe some other places do. So, but Bottle Tree was, if I could play anywhere, it was Bottle Tree. I loved playing Bottle Tree, and the reason was backstage at Bottle Tree was 3 Airstream trailers and an AstroTurf common area. That was the green room. That's where you hung out as the band. And the guy that owned the venue, I talked to him and I was like, well, what is the story here? This guy has been touring in bands internationally for however long. And he was like, look, I toured the world and I came back and I wanted to make a music venue that was the best of what I had seen. Sure. And so he had built this place. He had no money building this place. Well, over a period of time, he got some money, right? The venue did well. He booked better than anybody has ever booked in this town. He ended up having a little bit of money. He built a venue that he wanted to build. And so he actually went and was like, all right, now I'm going to build the next venue. It's a place called Saturn. I'd love to take you there for a show one night. But Saturn is take that original concept of Bottle Tree that he had to hodgepodge together and turn it into, I can get what I want. And nice. That is a world-class venue. So what that is my reference point for saying if these guys sell their property, like
sure.
BattleBit, they sell it to whoever, I hope they go make another game. Just the 3 of them, same thing, right? Go just make another game, except we're not eating ramen, right? We don't have to eat ramen this time. I want to see, because I would love to, what they did here, I hope that, I mean, I'm a software guy, you know this, right? I hope that they appreciate how special what they did really is. You made a fun video game. Do you know how hard that is now?
I think it would be impossible for you not to know if you've sold as many copies. And I haven't seen any negativity around this game.
That's
not
actually
nowhere.
a good point. That's a good point. I've seen no toxicity.
So to me, it's very difficult for me to see you not recognize that you've produced a high quality product. Like that to me is, there's no way that you couldn't know that, you know. I suppose for me the thing that I would have to say is going back to the old line I used to say is work hard, stay humble, and hopefully you stay humble and you remember where a lot of that feedback. Yep, right here.
Right there. Yeah.
With that, because one of the things I love in that dev call where he talks about a lot of the initial feedback for changes to the game they took from Discord, their Discord community, literally.
Oh yeah, right. How cool is that? That's the world we live in now. They're just like, come on Discord. And, yeah, we listened to you guys on Discord and we did a thing. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, there are certain indie publishers out there that say they take feedback and they do surveys and all this other crap, and then they go a complete polar opposite direction of the feedback. Like,
it's
like
really
you said,
easy.
the community sees that.
The community feels it. It is really easy. It's really easy for software engineers to. Okay, here's something I was doing consulting, right? I did it for quite a while. When you come into a place, what I can tell you is, let's say you started working somewhere. Let's say you started working for, I don't know, pick a company. Let's say Mercedes-Benz. Okay, you get hired, you got to Stuttgart, and you're going to work for Mercedes-Benz. You're going to walk in on day one, and you're going to think the way you think.
Yeah.
About Mercedes and about how the company works. You're going to think the way you think. There comes a time, usually it's between 6 and 9 months, where you think like Mercedes thinks, right? So there is a period of time where you're objective,
right?
And you lose that because now you're an employee. And the real weird and interesting thing is, employees of a company can never be customers of a company.
Right.
That doesn't mean they can't go use the product or whatever else, but they are not a user. They are not a customer.
Right. Right.
And so many companies, especially engineers, tend to think, oh, I can put myself in the player's shoes. I can put myself in the user's shoes. You can't. Like, it is psychologically impossible for you to do that. Why? Because you work at the company. You know things or have seen things or have viewpoints that a player is not going to have. And so it becomes kind of paramount if you want to be successful to actually find a way to listen to your community, take their feedback, make them feel like they were valued, make them feel like their feedback was appreciated, and then let them see their feedback have a place in the game.
Oh, man. And I think any game, if that were to happen on a big publisher level, I mean...
Dude. You know, I'll talk about a game that we don't play and that we've never played together, but a couple of the people in chat, I absolutely have played this with them, is EVE Online. So there was a time in EVE Online, way early days, where everything revolved around player feedback. Why? Because EVE Online was actually a social experiment where they created a space sandbox. And they're like, what are you guys going to do with it? Right? And so because it was like a part of their DNA to be like, we have to listen to people. We don't know what we're going to do with this thing. That changed, right? That changed at some point. They decided, no, we want to monetize differently. We want to do something. And it's always money. And I'm not going to say money is evil, because it's not. But you have to balance money and art. And without the money, you can't make the games. But you need to balance the money and the art, right? You got to figure that out. And EVE turned into in my opinion, you know, I was playing it, and it turned into a monetization money grab. And so what players were saying really wasn't how they were moving anymore. And I will be honest, you know, like many gaming communities, a lot of that's because the players were being jerks. You know, right. Some subset of the players have gotten so toxic that it was almost impossible to weed through the toxicity and get to the good feedback. So I definitely understand that happens. But it really is a great story where you got BattleBit out there who said, you know, our entire development path was 3 of us. And we built a thing we thought was pretty cool, and we showed it to some people, and they said it's almost pretty cool. And we said, okay, well, let's change it. And so we did that again, and they said it's almost pretty cool. Right? And I think there's a quote in there. He says, if I was going to give someone advice about building multiplayer games, I would say don't. Just don't. And I'm not going to lie, don't. Build a single player game.
He said first-person shooters specifically. First-person shooters, he said, if you're gonna make a game, the first-person shooter is the last category of game that you should probably do it, because he specifically called out the fact that it is the most stressful, tiring, annoying, frustrating thing that you could possibly do. And he said it with a bit of chagrin, right? Because here he is with the product. In my opinion, all that work's paid off, you know. But
yeah, I bet there's some guys at EA, right? Wearing Armani suits.
I promise.
Some guys over at Activision, right? Who are just like, they did what again?
Yeah.
What can we learn from that? You know, and you know what I'll tell you is really interesting? I haven't seen a single microtransaction.
Nope.
Everything in the game can be got by playing the game. Now, it can be grinding, right? It can be grinding. And look, everybody shoots me once and I die, and I shoot people 15 times and they don't, right? So, like, there's some strong stuff in this game that you want to play and get to.
But you have to get there.
If I could spend $25 and get it, I damn well would, right? Like, I would spend the $25, but I can't. Right? I would take that shortcut. I don't have a lot of time, so I would take that shortcut. But there's got to be some guys in the gaming industry that are like, who are these guys again? Where'd they come from? It's kind of like Stardew Valley when Concerned Ape launched Stardew Valley. You know, like, who are these people? So indie games, you and I have talked about this before, but I believe video games are to me one of the highest art forms.
For sure.
You look at movies, right? You look at music. You look at these things. They're art. And then you look at video games, and they are the mixture of art and interactivity, and that is really freaking cool. And 20 years from now, I think we'll start realizing that these indie games, to a great extent, is what was pushing the ball forward.
I think since the beginning of gaming time, indie games have been the driving force for all of it. Just nobody gives them credit.
You remember when EA was indie?
Oh yeah.
EA Sports. It's in the game. You remember that?
Exactly.
I remember that.
But that's what I mean. It's like, I don't think anybody's going to give any credit to that because everything was pioneered. I think every major change that has happened in gaming industry over the years has come from an indie startup somewhere. It was an idea or a mechanic in a game that somebody bought or
I hear you.
Whatever. Because a lot of the bigger game publishers, they have a vision. I want this to happen, make it happen. And they just make it happen. They don't think of the ingenuity, a lot of the ways that they could do it that are special, right? So, and I mean, like you said, Eve's a great example of that. Like, if you wanted to go be a pirate in that game and go jump people, you could do it. If you wanted to run the stock market purely, you could. If you wanted to go mine an asteroid for 12 hours straight, you could. Like, you know,
you could.
And that
you're crazy, but you could.
Yeah, you're 100% crazy. But I mean that's the thing that's like, I wish there was more games like that where here is the framework, make of it what you will, kind of thing. And I mean, that would be amazing if you could do that again. Which supposedly you've got a couple of games coming out soon that are supposed to. I shouldn't say supposed to. The developers say will be that way, which I think Star Wars. What's the new Star Wars one coming out? It's not Rebels. Outlaws. Star Wars Outlaws. I think it's coming. It's supposed to be a legitimate open world Star Wars. You don't have to be a Jedi. It's one of those things. If you're on a planet, you see that moon over there, I can hop in my ship and fly and go to that moon and go do whatever, or you can just do whatever. Allegedly, who knows?
Oh, I might be interested in that.
That one is supposed to be coming out, and then what's the other one that's coming out soon? I can't think of the name of it either, but there's another open world space one that's. I think their goals are a bit loftier than they believe, even. But I don't know. I just think there's I wish game devs would focus a little bit more on functionality and not so much on the graphics, because Unreal Engine 5 is out there. There's engines out there that produce a lot of this graphical fidelity. You don't need to focus so much on this thing, you know. So hopefully mechanics will get better with games, because there's a lot of games over the last, we were talking about Diablo 4 the other day. Diablo 4 to me is the first AAA title that's released in like a decade that has been the smoothest, best launch of a AAA game in like a decade, and that to me is really sad.
Blizzard's pretty good at making games.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. We need to add. So the last 2 segments we have 2 segments we do last. We need to add a what you playing, guys.
Yeah, I feel like
Segment. Because there was a game Dredge that I played, and if you haven't played Dredge, it's a single player game, and it's another one of these indie games that was just exactly the right pacing, an immense amount of fun, chill, interesting, right? Just dark enough to be a little bit creepy but not scary, like stuff like that. You play games like that, and what I do is I tend to, once I play a game like that, I start looking for another one like it. I start looking for can I find another game that's just like, oh, that was fun. I mean, it wasn't a lot. It was like, I don't know, 30 hours of playtime, maybe. It wasn't a ton of playtime.
Sure.
But it was amazing playtime, and I would love to see, like you were saying, more game developers just say, hey guys, let's put a pause on this. Yes, I know you can cross the uncanny valley by making this look amazing. I got it.
Yeah.
No one actually wants to shoot grandma, right? Like,
right.
Right? Like, I see the horror game is really, I got it, but no one actually wants to shoot Granny. Okay, like, can we make it fun? Right?
Yeah.
Can we? What is the fun quotient here?
Yeah.
Honestly, I'll be honest with all the sequels and games that are coming out. I'm not sure that a lot of game companies, a lot of bigger ones in particular, even know what fun is anymore.
I don't think so. I think it's gone the way of a lot of the movie industry, which is try to do a lot of shock and awe, and we don't even care if there's a story. Porn star level storylines, but you put a lot of shock and awe there.
Well, and now we got the writer's strike, right? So that's going to just going to get worse. So.
For sure. I don't know, man. I hope that it improves. But good luck to BattleBit guys. I really
the BattleBit guys. Look, here's one to you guys. Like, for real.
Yeah,
for
sure.
It's appreciated. We are enjoying your wares. I hope. I wish you nothing but greatness. And I hope you have as much fun supporting this game as you had making it, or more fun.
For sure.
And I hope to see that work in the future. They're great. So Hapa, what you watching?
Dude, I'm all over the place. I am.
Yeah?
There's no series out right now that I'm like really trying to watch. Well, okay. Look, if I had a tinfoil hat on, I would put it on right now. I've been watching the what is it? The Skinwalker Ranch series on Amazon. They're talking about the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah.
I was going through Amazon. We were watching Jack Ryan.
Yep.
And I saw that. What is this?
So there's a ranch in Utah called the Skinwalker Ranch, and it has historically, over decades, been a hotbed for unidentified flying objects, paranormal activity.
Oh, yeah?
They've said there's portals that open and things that are people see when they're out on the ranch that they can't figure out what it is, and there's even been talks that there's possibly like a portal wormhole on this ranch that may be connecting to another dimension.
What?
And sometimes those dimensions meet and
this is a real is this a work of fiction, or is this a real place?
No, it's a documentary. It's a legit place.
Okay,
so
this is
it's
now
worth
a
watch.
when
you start. So first of all, let me preface this with I hate any paranormal investigating show where they're like, "Did you see that?" That kind of.
Oh yeah.
I hate those.
Sasquatch.
Yes.
It's a Sasquatch. It's Sam Squanch. Where's the Sam
Right.
Squanch?
So they got to have a certain level of drama in order to keep you hooked.
Yeah.
This show does have a bit of that, and there's times where I'm like, come on guys, just move on. But they show a lot of historical stuff that to me is what's very interesting. Like,
Gotcha.
Case in point, there was the guy that owned it before the current owner was a CEO and head of an aerospace engineer corporation.
Okay.
He bought it because where this ranch is near other parts of Utah where allegedly certain special projects had been tested for the U.S. military.
Reportedly.
Allegedly, yes. And what's really cool is, so we didn't talk about this either. The road trip that Rita and I went on. You and I talked about this. We haven't talked about it on that podcast. We went through a place called Tonopah, Nevada.
Okay.
Which Tonopah we found out after we left is one of the most haunted towns in the United States. Lots of people have died there. Miners had all kinds of accidents. There was mines that collapsed, mine fires, like lots of murders, just a lot of bad juju. Okay, we'll sidebar that. We'll talk about that on another episode perhaps. But what caught me off guard was near the Skinwalker Ranch, there's the Tonopah Test Range. I didn't know this was a thing. Tonopah Test Range is also very closely connected to Area 51, which we all know the, mythos and everything there. But they talk, anyway, the Skinwalker Ranch stuff, what I'm getting at is the guy that originally owned it, case in point, one of the things they talk about is they found these 3 or 4 metal rods just out in a field. And they couldn't identify what the metal was. And they sent it back for metallurgy testing. And when these other people that were on the ranch asked this guy about what came of the testing, the guy was like, "Oh, it was nothing. That was it."
So we sent it for testing.
Yeah, and it was nothing. It was nothing. It's not a big deal. But they were perfectly cylindrical pieces of like a meter, half a meter long, just random metal, just laying out in the field. They had no idea what it was, whatever. Anyway. But little things like that, there's things where people have seen, UFOs over the hillsides, doing the weird erratic noises and moves and hums that are, nobody knows why there's humming. And there's a scene where they're shining a laser pointer at a hillside, and at some point halfway to the hillside, the light is split by something. So you can literally see the laser light in 2 spots, and there should be nothing there, just... I nerd out of stuff like that. So
that stuff's fun. That stuff's fun.
So that's
I've been watching a show you might be interested in. Do you have Apple TV Plus?
I don't have Apple TV. That's the only streaming thing I don't pay for.
Okay. Well. There's
a lot of shows on there that I want to see.
I think you could get the 30 free days, right? 30. There's a show called Silo. The first season is finished now. We worked our way through that.
That's the show that I wanted to see.
Yeah, recommended.
Yeah.
That's about the only way I can say it is it's recommended. It's based off of a series of books called Wool, Wool. It's one of those shows that I watch, and I'm like, I think I should read those books, which is what happened with me when I watched the most recent Dune movie. And the Dune movie comes out. How many books did you read? I'm 3 in right now.
My man.
Yeah, I'm working my way through them.
Anyway, sorry.
Yes, right. And you watch Dune. If anyone who's watched that movie, hopefully, if you enjoyed it, you walked away thinking, man, there's a lot I don't know. Right? There's obviously a lot that's been said.
Yes.
And when you read the books, you realize, yes, there is a lot. And when you go back and watch the movie again after you've read the books, the movies do a good job of making reference to those things. But if you haven't read the books, you really have a hard time catching them, right? You don't know what to look for.
Yeah.
So an awful lot of it is in the movies. But reading the books, man, and that's the same thing that happened to me with Silo. So watched the first season of Silo, and I was like, I think I'm just gonna pick these books up because I am just fascinated. I'll give you the premise, right, with no spoilers. But the premise is there's an entire society of people living in a silo. They have no idea why they are there. They have no idea who put them there. And it's about that society, how it functions. Not everyone, they have windows to see what's outside the silo, but all the windows are actually through cameras, right? There's a camera outside the silo, and it actually, it broadcasts to the windows.
Right.
So, super fascinating, interesting stuff, right? How this society functions inside of a freaking silo. So, it's definitely worth checking out. Yeah. But I'm gonna check out Skinwalker Ranch, because gotta be honest, every time I ask you this question. And every time you respond, I go check out whatever it is you say. And every time I've enjoyed that. Like somebody.
I'm not gonna lie. That show, there's gonna be times where you're gonna roll your eyes or like.
I love that stuff though, man. Like,
but yeah, when they get into some, like, there's a part where there's a hole in the ground and they're like, I wonder where this hole goes, and they literally pour 45,000 gallons of water, fill the hole. The water's gone in like 20 minutes, right? So. like
which means
6 months later.
Which means they did not fill the hole.
No, 6 months later they do it again, but they add green color to the water to see if the water pops up. Because Texas is a bunch of wetlands. There's wetlands everywhere.
Oh, is this place in Texas?
Yeah, it's well, the part of the ranch is here, but you have what they're looking for is to see where the water comes up in the water table, and they never see it. They never see it. They have no idea where the water went. It's like, one of those things that kind of stuff I nerd out about because I'm like, that it could be a whole underwater river or whatever, like between these places. So, but yeah. Anyways.
Well, I will definitely be checking that out then.
But yeah, so did I said Utah, didn't I?
You did.
I'm sorry.
Well,
so
originally
it is
you said Utah.
Southeast of Ballard, Utah, is where it is, not in Texas.
Okay.
I remember them referencing the water table and land being very similar to Texas because it's clay. The ground undercarriage is clay, a lot like it.
Yeah.
So,
we actually
Texas.
have that here. That's one of the things people. Why is the dirt red?
Yeah.
That's what people ask when they come to Alabama. They see the dirt and it's like, why is all the dirt red?
Is your clay the clay that you guys have? Is it like legit clay, like super thick and just?
Yeah.
I hate that stuff. I hate it.
Yeah, we have.
Ours isn't red, but it's. Ugh.
So ours is mixed with iron ore. So that's why it's red. So that was what was this city, Birmingham, Alabama, right? Magic City. The reason it's Magic City is it kind of grew so quickly, and it was because they discovered the red dirt was iron ore, and it was like, oh my god, steel everywhere, or you make steel out of all the things, and it's just basically unlimited amounts of that. So yeah, that's but people. Yeah, people come here and they're like, why is the dirt red? And what's a grit? That's kind of the question.
What's a grit?
That's what people ask when they come here.
That's funny. What's a grit?
What's a grit?
I never heard of a grit until I was in the military.
Grits are good, man.
Grits.
If you, oh my god, grits are.
So wait, what's the traditional way there? Is it savory or sweet?
It's savory. It's salt and pepper, maybe some butter, a little pat of butter. My mother-in-law puts sugar on it, which is a very frowned upon behavior here. But I know that in some places people are like, hey, you put sugar on grits, and I don't know.
Folks I met from the Carolinas like to put like maple syrup on them.
Okay, all right. So is that? I guess that's how far north you go. Then
I like a fried egg on top of my grits with some bacon.
I tell you,
some toast.
you put a
or
couple.
something.
Oh my god, you put a couple eggs.
Heck yeah.
You put a couple of fried eggs, maybe over
Heck
easy.
yeah.
With a couple pieces of toast and some grits. Ah, man.
There you go.
Cloud
some
nine
good
right
buttered
there.
toast. Just scoop it up.
Go make some of that right now.
I call that a redneck spoon.
Oh, yeah. Sop it all up. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, it's so good.
So anyways, we've been doing this we've been going for an hour and 43 minutes. I think I try to shoot for maximum 2 hours. We've had a few conversations that sometimes go a little bit further than that. But for those of you that are listening or watching, hopefully you're doing both. That'd be really cool. Or if you're just listening, just go to the YouTube and click like and subscribe and do all the things to help us out. But we're hoping to do this on an actual schedule. I think I've said that every episode, I feel like.
Well, you have. But I have been so far unable, not unwilling, but unable to commit. I think that has changed. I think we're going to do, what we say, Hapa, we're going to do every 2 weeks. So we're going to do it.
Hopefully, yeah.
Every other Tuesday is our plan. If we're unable to do it on a Tuesday for some reason, we will shoot for that Thursday. The exceptions are likely one of us is traveling, which we'll know ahead of time. So we are going to try to make this a regularly scheduled thing. We're going to make improvements. So if people have thoughts about it, please leave us comments, on YouTube. Hit us up. Any of the other ways you want to hit us up. But yeah, I have Twitter, right? Whatever the things are. Not Threads, because one of us are on there. But we were talking about last night.
I won't be on Threads. Where can they reach you? What are your places, man?
So I'm 7 everywhere, right? S3VYN. That's me everywhere. So I don't care if that's Twitter. I don't care if that's whatever it is, Instagram. I don't care. You can always reach me with that. I try to reserve it when something new comes out. I always try to reserve that name specifically for that reason. There's only a couple places where I don't have that name, but for the most part, that's where you can reach me. What about you, Hapa? How can people
Same
hit
thing,
up famous
Hapa _fodder, man. If you Google Hapa _fodder, you probably everywhere that I'm located is there. One of the one of the nice things about being me is that not too many people want to be Hapa or fodder or Hapa fodder.
Yeah, especially not both.
And here we are. So
Yeah.
look, man, I appreciate you. I love the hell out of our time together when we do this podcast.
Oh yeah, dude, this is always so much fun.
More and more, for real. Sometime I'm gonna head out there. We're gonna do it in the same location. We will do this podcast in the same location.
Oh my god, dude, if I could have you here, I'll tell you what, I'll go buy another one of these.
Not man. Let's do
Let
this.
you use an Austrian Audio OC18 for. I'd love to hear your voice on one of those. But the mic you got actually.
My 1-900 voice.
You got one of these, right? Which is a really good microphone. Yeah. Yep.
Honestly, this is probably. I told you the other day, but like legit, this is probably one of the best purchases I've had for all of my content creation. Honestly, like audio.
It sounds great.
Fantastic.
It takes your concerns out of it. Right? It's nice not to have to worry about it.
And I think that's the biggest thing is most of the filters, except for the limiter. The limiter is the only thing because I can get a little bit overly boisterous at times.
Yeah. Yep.
But every other filter I've had digitally, I've pulled off completely. So it's been great.
Yep.
But anyway, so I appreciate anybody and everybody that's out there watching on YouTube land, and I appreciate and love the hell of everybody that listens to us on whatever platform you might be listening to us on, whether that's iTunes, SoundHound, Spotify, what are all the other ones out there? I don't even know. Google Play. I think we're on all of them pretty much. But there was a couple comments and questions in the chat. One of the things I think you and I maybe need to add to the beginning of the podcast when we do our opener is that we don't particularly and usually interact with chat on YouTube, and that was just a conscious decision that Seven and I made just to keep our conversation flowing, because if we start answering questions, he and I already talk entirely too much on our own. so we don't need added into that. But if you do have questions or topics that you'd love to hear us talk about or hear our opinions on, do that. Put that in the comments on the live, put that in the comments in the chat, or you could send us a message on whatever platform you might find us on. I know for me, I will look at those. It may just take some time because we always come up with every topic as we go, but we always have a rolling group of topics in the back of our mind too. I think that we would like to throw on there, so it's always helpful to have that too. But yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about that. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think I'm good. Yeah, this was fun. It's always fun. I hope to do it more regularly. I hope people are enjoying it. I hope we get some. I want to do the history, right? I do want to do a podcast of like moments in history that we should talk about, right?
I'm down.
So I think that'd be a lot of fun to do. So you and I should be thinking about what are those subjects look like. If people have suggestions, hit us up. Let us know. If you'd like to hear us pontificate about the Treaty of Versailles, then please don't. But if that's what you want to hear, truly, right? Maybe we could figure something out. The Treaty of Versailles was rude by all that it applied
the implications of let them eat cake.
Yes, that was. Yeah. Joan of Arc. No, really.
No, seriously. Anyway.
Okay.
I think that's about it. I appreciate the hell out of every one of y'all. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, laugh, smile, make someone else laugh and smile. Be a better human. I think that's just the closer.
Be a better human.
Be a better human. And we hope to see you guys next time. Take it easy, y'all.
Bye.